Hello, and welcome to the All-Star Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin Hebert. This is episode 1 of a 10-episode series in which we will be discussing the fundamentals of mental performance and how you can implement these concepts into your everyday life to enhance the performance of whatever it is that you do. This episode will serve as an introduction to the podcast and will cover the topics of growth mindset and motivation. First, I would like to introduce myself a little bit further by highlighting a couple of key things about me that will be relevant to this podcast. First and foremost, I am a mental performance coach. I help individuals master their mindset and achieve peak performance. I love helping people, and throughout the course of my life, I have found this to be my calling. It's extremely fulfilling to me to help people become the best version of themselves possible. As for my education and expertise, I obtained a master's degree in kinesiology with a focus on sport, exercise, and performance psychology. I attended California State University, Chico in Northern California and graduated with distinction, earning one of the highest awards from the department for the body of work that I was able to complete during my time in the program. I have over 5 years of experience working with athletes, coaches, and high performers. I excel at working with people in one-on-one environments, but I also thrive in small groups and seminar settings. Additionally, I have peer-reviewed articles published in The Sports Psychologist and Strategies. First, I published a paper about the impact of the relationship between coaches and athletes and how this dynamic ultimately affects how successful either party is. I also published a paper about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on athlete mental health, identity, and anxiety. I am an expert in motivational interviewing, and I collaborate with clients to enhance their self-efficacy, their life skills, and performance through personalized strategies. I thoroughly enjoy getting to know my clients and learning about what makes them individually unique. I then craft strategies based on these personality traits in order to help my clients be successful. Now I'd like to introduce the mission of All-Star Mindset, and by extension, this podcast. One of the primary goals of All-Star Mindset is to empower high performers. All-Star Mindset helps athletes, coaches, and high performers unlock their full potential through tailored mental performance training. This means that no matter what your role is, be it an athlete, a coach, a musician, or an entrepreneur, regardless of the level that you are currently at, and regardless of your current knowledge of mental performance techniques, I'm able to help you level up your performance and become more effective at whatever it is that you do. All-Star Mindset utilizes a holistic approach, focusing on stress management, self-talk, breath work, mindfulness, and team cohesion to enhance thinking, feeling, and performance. This podcast will be covering these topics and many more on our journey into learning about what mental performance is and how to utilize these techniques to excel in your performance. Ultimately, All-Star Mindset will give you the tools for peak performance, providing strategies and techniques to help clients consistently achieve their best in sports, coaching, and personal endeavors. And now, before we dive into the content for today's podcast, I'd like to give a quick overview of what you can expect moving forward. The purpose of this series is to gain a deeper understanding of All-Star Mindset, what mental performance entails, and how mental performance coaching plays a pivotal role in achieving athletic success. This series will explore the tools and techniques needed to optimize mindset, enhance focus, and consistently perform at your best. We will also discuss the idea of why mental performance matters. Mental training is essential for peak performance because it strengthens key areas like focus, stress management, self-talk, and team cohesion. By incorporating practices such as goal setting, you can create a clear roadmap for success, while motivation keeps you driven towards achieving your objectives. Imagery helps you visualize and mentally rehearse success, sharpening your performance under pressure. Mindfulness promotes present moment awareness and emotional control, helping you stay composed and focused, even in high-stress situations. Together, these skills form the foundation for consistent, high-level performance. In today's episode, we will be diving into several of the most important topics related to mental performance: growth mindset and motivation. These topics form the foundation of possessing an all-star mindset. I will be explaining how you can turn obstacles into opportunities and build the motivation you need to excel. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into the first topic for this podcast: growth mindset. But before I even define growth mindset or describe how you can develop a growth mindset for yourself, I want to tell a couple of brief stories so that you have a few real-world examples of what growth mindset is and can picture it for yourself. First, let's take a look at Serena Williams. After a severe foot injury in 2010, followed by a life-threatening pulmonary embolism in 2011, she wasn't performing at her peak immediately upon returning to the court. Instead of being discouraged by these setbacks, she refocused her training and mental approach, gradually working her way back to the top. That's a prime example of a growth mindset, using adversity to fuel personal growth. Now, let's take a look at Derrick Rose's career. Derrick Rose was the youngest player ever to win the NBA MVP award in 2011. However, shortly after winning such a prestigious award, his career took a sharp turn when he tore his ACL in the 2012 playoffs. Over the next few years, he suffered multiple knee injuries, each one requiring surgery and long periods of rehab. For many athletes, knee injuries, specifically those requiring surgery and long periods of rehab, are the end of the road and their professional careers as they know it. But Rose didn't give up. He adapted his game, refocused his mindset, and accepted the challenge of working his way back into form. In 2018, Rose scored a career-high 50 points in a single game, an emotional reminder of his resilience. His story is a perfect example of how a growth mindset, learning from setbacks and staying determined, can lead to incredible comebacks. Now, think about a time that you have faced a challenge. Maybe an injury, a bad game, or even doubts from your teammates or your coaches. How did you respond? Did you see it as a sign that you weren't good enough, or did you just push through it? Remember, just like Derrick Rose and Serena Williams, it's not about avoiding adversity, but how you rise after falling. A growth mindset means believing that setbacks are part of the process and that effort, persistence, and learning from failure can lead to success. Okay, so I just gave you a couple of real-world examples of growth mindset from professional athletes, but what exactly is a growth mindset? A growth mindset is a belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and resilience. According to psychologist Carol Dweck, those with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities to improve. Athletes with a growth mindset believe that their talents and abilities are not fixed. They can be improved through dedication, effort, and learning. This mindset fuels perseverance in the face of adversity, turning setbacks into fuel for future success. Now that we have a better idea of what exactly a growth mindset is, Let's take a look at another prime example of it in action. Let's take a look at Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes of our generation by multiple different metrics. Despite what many people think, Michael Jordan wasn't always an excellent basketball player, and he wasn't even an immediate success. In fact, Michael Jordan didn't even make his high school varsity basketball team. But he didn't let that failure define him. It motivated him to work even harder. Michael chose to believe that he could improve his skills and didn't let the fact that he had a setback dictate what he would accomplish in the future. When Michael didn't make his high school varsity team, it could have been easy for him to think, I'm just not good enough. But instead, he saw it as a challenge, a moment that pushed him to practice harder, improve his skills, and ultimately become one of the greatest basketball players of all time. This growth-oriented thinking is what separates those who stagnate from those who continuously push the boundaries of their potential. It's about embracing failure as part of the process, trusting that with effort and time, improvement will come. Contrasting growth mindset, we have the concept of fixed mindset. In a fixed mindset, people believe their abilities are set in stone, unchangeable. They think that their talent is something that they're born with, and if they aren't naturally good at something, it's because they're simply not cut out for it. Athletes with a fixed mindset might say things like, I'm just not good at this, or I'll never be able to improve my shot. They view failure as a reflection of their inherent limitations, rather than as an opportunity to learn or grow. When you have a fixed mindset, challenges feel threatening because they expose your perceived weaknesses. You might avoid taking risks or trying new techniques because of the fear of failure or embarrassment. This mindset can also make you compare yourself constantly to other people. And when you fall short, it feels like confirmation that you'll never be as good as them. In reality, though, these are just self-imposed limits. Fixed mindset fuels avoidance and stagnation, and that's what holds so many athletes back. So just to reiterate, a growth mindset is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges, learn from failures, and view setbacks as opportunities for improvement. In contrast, those with a fixed mindset have the belief that their talents and abilities are innate and unchangeable. Those with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges, fear failing, and see obstacles as threats to their sense of ability. While a growth mindset fuels perseverance and progress, a fixed mindset leads to avoidance and stagnation, holding athletes and individuals back from reaching their full potential. Let's move on to discuss the second major topic of today's podcast, motivation. Similar to the previous section about growth mindset, I'm going to give you a few prominent examples of athletes who have struggled with motivation during their careers. After that, we'll discuss what motivation actually is and how you can nurture your own motivation if you ever find yourself struggling with it. Even the world's most successful athletes have faced struggles with motivation at various points in their careers. One notable example is Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time. After his record-breaking performance at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Phelps fell into a deep state of burnout and depression, which ultimately led him to question his desire to continue competing. He even took a break from swimming, unsure if he would ever return. Despite his incredible success, Phelps' mental and emotional exhaustion showed that motivation can wane, even for the best. Another example is NBA superstar Kevin Durant. After suffering a devastating Achilles injury during the 2019 NBA Finals, Durant found himself struggling with motivation during his recovery. The long and grueling rehab process, paired with doubts about whether he'd ever return to his previous form, led him to question his future in basketball. Durant has spoken openly about how difficult it was for him to stay mentally focused and motivated during that time, but eventually found his drive again by reconnecting with his love for the game and the support of his team. Now, think about a time where you might have struggled with motivation in the past. Or maybe you're even struggling with motivation right now and are listening to this podcast seeking help. I want you to think about what initially motivated you to pursue whatever it is that you're currently pursuing, whether it's a sport, a business venture, or something else. And what happened to that motivation? Did something change? Are your priorities different now? Simply taking the time to reflect on what motivates you can be a great way to refocus yourself and get back on track towards your goals. Imagine you're halfway through the season and the wins aren't coming as easily as you thought they would. The motivation to keep pushing can start to wane. We've all been there. One of my clients, a high school soccer player, struggled with this exact problem. The key? Understanding where her motivation was coming from. The definition of motivation is the internal or external drive that prompts an individual to take action or engage in a particular behavior. It's the reason or incentive behind why people set goals, make decisions, and persist in the face of challenges. In the context of sports, motivation is what pushes athletes to train, compete, and improve. Motivation can either be intrinsic, coming from within, like personal satisfaction or the desire to master a skill, or extrinsic, driven by external factors such as rewards, recognition, or fear of failure. Both types of motivation play a role in determining how athletes perform and persist, but intrinsic motivation tends to lead to more sustained effort and satisfaction over time. So again, let me repeat that in slightly different terms. Motivation can come from two places: within, intrinsic, or from outside sources, extrinsic. Athletes who are intrinsically motivated perform because they love the sport and want to improve. Those relying on extrinsic motivation might only perform for rewards, recognition, or external validation. While extrinsic motivation can be powerful in the short term, driving athletes to win championships or achieve accolades, it often fades once those goals are achieved. That's when the deeper intrinsic motivation becomes critical for long-term success and fulfillment. Now, let's revisit the previous two athletes that we discussed, Michael Phelps and Kevin Durant, and see how the concept of motivation impacted their respective journeys. After Michael Phelps' historic success in the 2008 Olympics, he had achieved all the external rewards an athlete could imagine: gold medals, world records, and global fame. But without a deeper intrinsic drive, he found himself lost and questioning why he continued to compete. It wasn't until Phelps connected with a higher purpose, focusing on mental health and using his platform to help others, that he was able to reignite his passion for swimming. It wasn't about the medals anymore. It was about becoming a better version of himself and using his experience to inspire others. Similarly, Kevin Durant faced a crisis in motivation after his Achilles injury. For an athlete of his caliber, the pursuit of championships and MVP titles had always been a strong external motivator. But during his long rehab, he had to reconnect with his love for basketball itself, the joy of simply playing the game. This intrinsic motivation fueled his comeback, helping him overcome the physical and mental challenges of recovery, not just to win, but to prove himself that he could return even stronger. But during his long rehab, he had to reconnect with his love for basketball itself, the joy of simply playing the game. This intrinsic motivation fueled his comeback, helping him overcome the physical and mental challenges of recovery, not just to win, but to prove to himself that he could return even stronger. The most successful athletes understand how to harness this intrinsic motivation. They know it's not just about the next trophy or the next title, but about becoming better than they were yesterday. By focusing on personal growth, they ensure that their motivation remains strong, even when the external rewards are no longer in sight. Now that we have a good idea about what growth mindset and motivation are, as well as having gone over some examples of these concepts in several prominent athletes of our generation, I wanted to give you some actionable tips that you can use to help develop growth mindset and motivation for yourself. The first one is to seek out challenges. Don't shy away from tough situations that push your limits. Whether it's tackling a difficult opponent, learning a new skill, or pushing yourself harder in training, challenges are where real growth happens. When you purposefully step outside your comfort zone, you give yourself the chance to discover new abilities and expand your potential. Second, reflect on your mistakes. Instead of letting mistakes discourage you, use them as stepping stones to improvement. When you face a setback, like losing a game or making an error, pause and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Analyze what went wrong and then focus on what adjustments you can make. Every mistake is a lesson if you choose to learn from it. Lastly, celebrate the small wins. Motivation can fade if you only focus on big, distant goals. Keep it alive by recognizing and celebrating small victories along the way. Whether it's improving your shooting percentage, lifting a little heavier in the gym, or mastering a technique, even small progress is still progress. These small wins create momentum and remind you that growth is happening bit by bit. Several specific things that you can do to help develop a growth mindset and bolster your motivation are as follows. Number 1, set weekly stretch goals that push you slightly beyond your current abilities. For example, if you usually train for 30 minutes, push yourself to 35 or 40. Or if you're working on shooting, aim to make 5 or 10 more shots than usual during practice. These small challenges will gradually expand your skill set and build your confidence. Number 2, for reflecting on your mistakes, one actionable thing that you can do is to keep a performance journal where you write down a key mistake from a game or practice, followed by what you learned and how you'll adjust next time. This process turns mistakes into learning opportunities and helps you stay focused on improvement. Finally, a great way to celebrate your small wins is to track your progress in measurable ways, like keeping a record of personal bests in the gym, on the track, or even during games. Each time you break a previous record or achieve a new milestone, acknowledge the win by reflecting on how far you've come, even if it's just a small improvement. These small actions will not only keep you on track for growth, they'll keep you motivated in the process. All right, as we wrap up this episode, let's put what we've talked about into action. Here's your challenge for this week. I want you to pick one area where you're feeling stuck, whether it's in your sport, in school, or even in life. It could be a tough practice, a frustrating project, or maybe a personal goal that you've been struggling to reach. Now, I want you to apply a growth mindset to that situation. Instead of seeing the challenge as a roadblock, think of it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Here's what I want you to do. Write down one specific challenge that you've faced recently, and then think about how you can turn that challenge into a chance for improvement. What can you learn from it? How can you use it to get better? Throughout the week, I want you to track your progress. Notice how approaching the situation with a growth mindset changes the way that you respond. Do you feel more motivated? Less discouraged by setbacks? Keep notes on how this affects your mindset, and at the end of the week, reflect on what you learned. Remember, growth doesn't happen overnight, but every step forward counts. I'd love to hear how this challenge goes for you. Feel free to share your experience and feedback in the comments, and let me know how applying a growth mindset helped you tackle your challenge. Your journey could inspire others too. Continue to challenge yourselves and embrace the journey. I'll catch you all in the next episode.